Welcome back, everybody. I'm super excited to share with you the updated hybrid chain lightning build. Now, this is a fire and lightning dual element build. It is a spectacle. There's explosions everywhere. And today we're doing up this follow-up video so that way we can show you that it is a viable build. You can take it all the way from level 1 to 100. You can do late tier nightmare dungeons. You can do higher tier infernal hordes. And you can also do a bunch of the other end game content. So let's go into exactly what this build entails. Well, if you watched the earlier video, you'll know that the skills haven't changed too much. We're going to do 1 point in Arc Lash, 1 point in Enhanced Arc Lash, 5 points in Fireball. This is going to be our enchantment skill as well, so we're going to go over that in a second. We're going to put 1 point in Devastation so that we can put 3 points in Elemental Dominance. This will give us a 12% increased damage when we cast above 50 mana, 5 points in Chain Lightning, obviously, and 1 point in Greater Chain Lightning, so that way we can increase its damage up to 30% for each bounce. 1 point into Teleport, so we can get the Shimmering Teleport for the damage reduction. We're going to put 2 points in Elemental Attunement, so we can have a chance to reset our Ice Armor. 3 points in Glass Cannon, so you can deal increased damage. 1 point in Ice Armor, and 1 point in Mystical Ice Armor, so we can do increased damage to frozen enemies. 1 point in Frost Nova. 1 point in Mystical Frost Nova, so that we can get Vulnerability. 1 point in Hydra and Summoned Hydra. Now, the Summoned Hydra is very important because we want that burn to always be on our enemies. 3 points in Precision Magic, so we can increase the lucky hit chance. 3 points in Mana Shield, so we can get damage reduction. 3 points in Protection, so that you can get a barrier every time you use a cooldown. 3 points in Conjuration Mastery, so we can get 12% mana regeneration, 1 for each of the 2 Hydras that we have out. No Mastery skills. We're going to go 1 point in Permafrost so that we can do 3 points in Hoarfrost. Again, 18% increased damage to frozen enemies. That's what we care about. 3 points in Fiery Surge so that way we can get 45% increased mana regeneration after killing a burning enemy. And then we have Unstable Currents that we're going to be casting at all times, and Prime Unstable Currents. We don't need the third one. And we're going to do Veer's Mastery for additional damage. Now, in terms of enchantments, we're doing Fireball. When you kill an enemy, they explode in a fireball for 50% of its damage. Very important for mob clearing. And then Frost Nova, your conjuration skills have up to a 35% chance to unleash a Frost Nova. Again, our Hydras are going to be doing this all the time, so not only are they going to be burning enemies, they're also going to be making them vulnerable because of the Frost Nova. Now, in terms of the Paragon board, on the first board, we're going to put Control, and we're going to take the path that I've outlined over here. The second board we're going to lay down is the Static Surge board, and we're going to put it in this orientation. We're going to then put Destruction as the rare glyph, so we can get crit strike damage. This board is going to go up and it's going to go to the right, but let's go up first. The next board we're going to take is Burning Instinct. We don't care about this node, but we do care about getting a glyph in here. We're going to put Territorial so that we can do increased damage to close targets, as well as getting 15% damage reduction against close enemies. Next board we're going to put down to the right is the Elemental Summoner board. For the glyph itself, we're going to put down Unleash, and what we actually care about is the additional bonus, which lets us increase our mana regeneration after spending 50 mana. Obviously, we get a little bit of damage boost as well, but that's primarily for the mana regeneration. To the right, we're going to put down the Enchantment Master board. We don't care about that node, but we do care about another glyph. So for this one, again, we care about the additional bonus. Dealing Fire, Cold, and Lightning damage to an enemy increases all damage you deal to them by 5%. Stacking once per element, so that's a 15% increase to damage from that. And now the final board, which is to the right of the Static Surge board, we have Frigid Fate. So this allows us to deal bonus damage to vulnerable enemies, which we make them vulnerable from Frost Nova. And we're going to put the Flame Feeder here so we can deal additional damage to burning targets. Now let's talk about the aspects themselves. On the helmet, we're doing Mage Lord's aspect for the additional damage reduction. For the chest armor, we're putting on Juggernaut's aspect. And this is the temporary aspect that we're putting on there until we can get more armor pieces with the correct affixes, including plus armor on there. So that way we can cap out at 9,000 without this thing. For the gloves, we're putting Stable aspect so we can trigger additional shock skills. Axial Conduit is super important for this build. It allows the Chain Lightning to really just zap almost infinitely between enemies. It will drain your mana like crazy, so if you don't have Axial Conduit, you can use regular pants, but your build is going to be completely different. Until I got Axial Conduit, which was like, I think level 70 or something like that, I was just using the regular Chain Lightning build, which was an extension of the early game one, where we were just spamming Chain Lightning as much as possible. You can't really do that with the Axial Conduit because it will absolutely burn through all of your mana very, very quickly. So it plays a little bit differently. This is the more viable build. You absolutely need Axial Conduit in order to take this to the high tier Nightmare Dungeons. In order to do proper endgame content, you're gonna need these pants. For the boots, we're putting on Aspect of Concussive Strikes. We have a lot of lucky hit things triggering in the build anyways, so you might as well try to get that 5 to 20% increased damage to dazed enemies. For the weapon, we're putting Chain Lightning has an increased chance to chain 5 additional times. This is a no-brainer. Amulet, casting a Pyromancy, Shock, or Frost skill increases your mana regeneration by 10 to 20% for 5 seconds, once per element. Now we're going to be casting all 3 of those elements, so we're going to be getting that extra mana regeneration. We absolutely need Talrash's Iridescent Loop. For each type of element damage you deal, gain increased damage for 4 seconds. This is huge as well. And then the final aspect, we're doing Lightning Rod Aspect on the ring, which has a 25% chance to deal increased damage for our Chain Lightning. Those are going to be our aspects. Now, as you can see, we've capped out armor more than we need, just until we can get enough just through our armor pieces. Then we're going to get rid of that one aspect we were talking about. Resistances are all capped out. Crit strike chance is 28%. Crit strike damage is around 870%. Both of them are under where they should be. For the weapon, we've got intelligence, max life, and percent damage on there naturally. We tried to put on there the chain lightning projectiles to cast twice, but I didn't end up doing it successfully. In terms of the boots, they're not bad. It gives us extra mana per second, extra armor, extra movement speed after killing an elite. And then lucky hit chance to freeze enemies, that we put that on there on every single armor piece that's on there, so that we can freeze things as much as possible. Now for Axial Conduit, this is a pretty good roll for it. It's not perfect. We're going to keep trying to find better ones, but this will do for now. For the gloves themselves, we've got intelligence, lucky hit chance, and crit strike damage. Obviously, we could be using some more crit strike chance in there as well, but this will do for now. Again, the gear's not optimized. We just hit 100. So we're going to be working towards gear optimization right now so that we can do Uber Lilith and the other Torment bosses. For the chest piece, we've got intelligence, max life, mana per second. Again, we need mana per second in as many places as we can find it. This build is a hog for mana, so we need to get that in there as much as possible. Once again, we also have lucky hit chance to freeze enemies. Very, very, very important. The helmet, we've got max life, max resource, mana per second. I tried to put on some plus armor in there, but it ended up as dodge chance. So again, we're going to need a new helmet to reroll these stats on. This amulet isn't that great. It gives us some crit strike chance and +1 to conjuration mastery, but ideally we get +2 to conjuration mastery. A long time ago, I put on plus 45% damage on there and cold resistance in order to cap the cold resistances as well. As you can see, it's a 9-10 item power. I still haven't found one better than this, but we're going to be working on getting crit strike chance, crit strike damage on there. For one of the rings, we've got crit strike chance, lucky hit chance, and crit strike damage. This is a pretty damn good roll over here, except for the fact that we tried to get the cooldown reduction for unstable currents, and instead we got 10% deep freeze cooldown reduction, completely useless to us, but managed to put on the critical strike damage. Finally, we have Talrash's Iridescent Loop. It is not a bad roll on this one. So how does the build work itself? Well, you go into a fight, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to drop down the Hydras. Why are you dropping down the Hydras? You want that burn happening. You want enemies to become vulnerable from the Frost Novas, and you also want the mana regeneration. Then you're going to drop Ice Armor, because that Ice Armor is going to give you damage reduction, and it's also going to give you mana regeneration. Then, after you've done that, you can start hitting things with your Chain Lightning. Now, the Chain Lightning works really well. You need to click it maybe 2-3 times, and you're going to see it destroy an entire room. You don't need to spam it like in the early game build, because the Axial Conduit is just going to melt through your entire mana pool if you do spam it. So that's really all it is. Drop your Hydras down, drop Ice Armor, and start casting Chain Lightning. Now, once you no longer have a barrier with Ice Armor, you can teleport, refresh that barrier on yourself. It'll help protect you, give you some more survivability. And then hopefully either your teleport or your Ice Armor is going to refresh with the lucky hit chance, and then we rinse and repeat until everything is dead. Now, this build is really, really great for mobbing. I think it's probably a 9 out of 10 for mobbing, and it's probably a 6 out of 10 in terms of doing like late game bosses. Obviously, it can do sub-level 140 bosses, no problem, but once you're getting level 140 bosses and up, it's gonna take you some time. It's not like you're gonna get one-shotted and you're gonna die quickly, but because the Chain Lightning works best when there's multiple enemies it can bounce off on, it doesn't do as much damage to bosses, so it'll take you a little bit longer to clear some of those late game bosses, but it is still completely viable. I wanted to try to do a non-meta build and try to see if I could make it viable, and I think I've succeeded in that. The next step, like I said, is armor optimization and perfecting all of those stats so that hopefully we can tackle the Torment bosses and Uber Lilith. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Honestly, the support is appreciated, and I will catch you next time. See ya.